Okay, folks, I had recorded a video, like, I think a night or two ago, because I got this call from my dad, that the situation with my mom was pretty dire, and I needed to, head down there, because he didn't know if, she was gonna, make some recovery, or, still be around and that sort of thing, and, you know, I wasn't really sure about where things were at entirely. And I, deleted that video. It kind of, I was gonna upload it, at that point in time, so it kind of like be relevant. But the important thing right now is that, it's gotten worse. It's the point that, I mean, that's an understatement. That there's like maybe a day or two left for her before she passes on, before she dies. And these last so many videos have been really, really heavy in terms of the content, but I'm not really holding anything back. I've already spent enough time so far, crying and just trying to talk to her while she's in there. But she's, I mean, she's in a state where she can't talk. A lot of it's because of sedation, but then, it's also because she wasn't able to breathe on her own. They had to put her on the ventilator, which they had taken her off, and then, I guess things just kind of spread to the point of, that she wasn't able to be breathing on her own, and they had to put her, they had to intubate her, and, she's on that oxygen. They have her on a bunch of antibiotics and, other treatments, but she has not just the cancer, which is spread from her. It had already spread from her pancreas to her peritoneum and omentum, which is it's like these tissue linings in the abdomen, but then it spread to her colon and started blocking that off, so they couldn't put in a feeding tube, and it also spread to her spleen, and I believe also to her lungs. And it's kind of like the clock's just ticking at this point, ticking down to the final moments. And I guess there was far more spread on her the omentum and the peritoneum that they had originally thought. I looked into it further, and it's just I mean, the doctor's doing all he can, and the nurses, the nurses are doing all they can, but, she's in ICU, and this is terminal. There's not really much that can be done. It's just like waiting, and, whenever you can summon up the strength to go in there, the mental, emotional strength to go in there and, be next to her and try and, just hold her hand and talk to her and, remind her how much you love her and that sort of thing. That's really all you can do at this point. And, I don't know, just, like, I figured, I think, back on the 16th, I'm not sure if, my phone is really picking up any noise at this point. I'll move that around a bit. I don't play back my videos, so you guys tell me if you couldn't hear me for the first like 4 minutes or so. I'll try and make sort of a follow-up video to sort of explain some things, but whatever I can remember that I was saying in the first 4 minutes. But anyways, I figured this was gonna be the case. I think back on like the 16th, because back then, it's actually, I think it was the 15th actually, because on the 16th we had this first scheduled consultation with one of the top pancreatic oncologists in the world, and 24 hours beforehand, her blood pressure drops. They have to rush her to the ER, then she gets to the ICU, and then eventually gets released to the regular hospital, and then it's kind of like cycle back to the skilled nursing facility, which is where she was at when she had her blood pressure drop. And I was very much of the mindset that, like, we don't have the time for these kinds of things to happen. And you're also dealing with, a mother who, I do love her dearly, and she'll always have a special place in my heart. And, when you're a guy growing up, it's kind of like, your mother's your first love, you have that sort of, unless the relationship is so utterly dysfunctional, you at least have something of a special connection with her. But at the very least, she has, however, she has, exhibited behaviors over the years that have indicated that she's on the narcissism spectrum, or has been, pretty much all her life. And I say is now because, I don't know, I'm thinking that she's still alive, but, and, so it's kind of like whenever she's been lucid or had the strength, or she was on the verge of getting some treatment, or the consultation or whatever, she would exhibit those behaviors of just like attention seeking, argumentativeness, just creating drama for the sake of attention, and then like essentially engaging in behaviors that sort of, like, you could say, sabotaged our efforts to get her chemotherapy and all that. Because when you're like wigging out in front of the oncologist and he's saying, hey, you need to be at a certain point in terms of, your strength and your mobility and your cognitive, capacity, that, you're kind of going into with a full tank of gas or so to speak, so you can take the treatment and survive it. When you have someone there wigging out in front of the oncologist, and, he or she, or they're seeing that right in front of them, and there's no way of sort of, that's not what's really going on here. Like, no, I can literally see this is what's going on, and I'm sorry, but we can't do a treatment right now, And the oncologist, said, give her a month, and maybe if she can, pull some turnaround, get her strength and mobility back, we can start something. And he had threw out some possible treatment options, but the reality is, at that point, it was kind of like almost like a false hope, like, oh yeah, come back in a month. And it's like, well, how do we know we even have a month? This is not some slow growing type of cancer where it could take months before you even get symptoms after diagnosis. This is an aggressive one that just kind of like, it just spreads through you and you're gone. And I kind of started seeing sort of the writing on the wall. It became more and more clear to me. It's kind of like I could see some, fudged out scribbles, and I became more and more, clear and focused as, the days went on, and it was like, I was having to struggle with that, because for one thing, like, with my dad, it's like my mom's been the center of his universe, alternating her position only with my sister. And occasionally I've had times with him, and we've had memories we created or whatever, and quote unquote or whatever. It's not like we haven't spent time together, but for him, like, most of his life was, ever since he married her, was like either centered on her, or then after, for a time there was me, but then my sister comes along a few years later, and then after that, you kind of get pushed out as the son, and it becomes about those two. And for my dad, I think one of the reasons it's been tough really to sort of be that person who's seeing the writing on the wall, and is having to sort of work to accept that things probably aren't going to work out the way you'd want to, and there's not going to be a miraculous turnaround, a road to Damascus moment, God reaching down from on high and zapping those cancer cells, and suddenly they're gone. Is that just seeing like him sort of grasping at straws, desperation, like that he never, and I'm not sure how you can expect or foresee this, but he never foresaw a life without her, Or a life without my sister. It was very much sort of like my point of purpose and value in this world is, based off of like how useful I am to my wife and my daughter, in particular. And, on occasion, my son, when those times come, and you take away my mom, and, they've been married. Geez, like, this, as is sort of like, this is like really, I think it puts even more like weight or emphasis on it, because like, the 26th of this month was their anniversary, and that was like right when she was taken into the hospital, this final time. And they've been married like 41 years, over 4 decades, and whether or not they were quote unquote soulmates when they met, it's almost become like that, that like most of their lives has been spent together, regardless of all the flaws or the arguments or the fighting or the this or the that. It's like, they eventually became sort of molded together. And, it is like for my dad, like losing half of himself. If my sister were to, leave, or something were to happen to her, it'd be like losing, half of his remaining half, or something of that nature, or more likely, like 3/4 of their remaining half, and there wouldn't be much left after that. And, I mean, it's kind of like, it's kind of like I love my parents, but at the same time, they never thought about the future. They never thought about living in moderation. My mom, raging dysfunctional alcoholic. My dad an enabler. My sister with her own substance abuse issues. Though a lot of the stuff, I can definitely tell with my sister is because of the childhood abuse that she was subjected to by that scumbag cousin of mine, which we didn't know about at the time. But my mom, I don't know the entire story of her life. Everything I've been told is that she basically was, like daddy's little girl. His, my grandpa's everything, center of the universe for him. Even more so than my grandma. Like she had to play second fiddle to my mom was my mom. Came along. And that, she never really adjusted, for one thing, to life after they, adopted my uncle, brought him into the family, and then even further down the line, after she, got out into the wider world, and she was no longer, so-and-so's daughter. She was just, some person, and she couldn't really adjust to that, and, tried to do anything and everything to get the attention back, to get the validation back. And unfortunately, that meant, years and years of substance abuse, which, I've been exposed to enough chemistry and biochemistry to sort of be able to understand some of these things, but that substance abuse is largely what has led to her getting pancreatic cancer, which is something that nobody else in the family has ever had. Apparently, one of her uncles, my grandma's older brother, I guess he was the only boy in that family, but he apparently had prostate cancer. I don't know if there's any sort of genetic influence there, making him more prone to getting cancer. But I think when he got it, he was in his 80s or his 90s. So, we're not talking about some, middle-aged or young person. We're talking about somebody who was, a grizzled World War II United States Navy veteran of the Pacific Theater, was at, Guam, and I think, probably Peleliu and Iwo Jima and all those major battles. At least in terms of like the Navy's involvement. The Navy's part of that campaign. I don't know if he was at Guadalcanal or not. He may have been, or Tarawa, and all these legendary battles, like insofar as Navy was involved, he was at a lot of those. And when he finally passed away, he was like in his 90s, I believe. I think he was 90, 91, 92, maybe older, maybe 94, 93, something like that. But I think a lot of the folks in that branch of the family, they kind of lived their lives more in moderation, whereas there was alcoholism running in my grandpa's branch of the family, unfortunately, at least starting with his father. And then it kind of passed on to him, and then on to my mom. And I've tried to break the cycle myself, which is why I've never had any alcohol, period. I don't know if it's going to make a difference in the long run. Maybe something else will get me. We're all mortal. Something eventually gets you, like Chuck Palahniuk says in Fight Club, on a long enough, I don't know if this is directly in the book, I'd have to go and get my copy. I know it's definitely mentioned in the movie adaptation, but on a long enough timeline, the survival rate for everyone drops to 0. Something eventually will get me, and I'm hoping it's years and years and years off in the future after I've done enough with my life. But here I sit, and I'm worried about my dad because, like I said, they never planned for the future. There's no real retirement savings, to the extent that one might think of in terms of what one might consider retirement savings. Supposedly my dad has some money stashed away, but there's very little thinking, if any, to the extent that it really, you might as well say there wasn't any thinking for the future or for the long-term effects of their lifestyle, or the idea of like living in a manner that you could have a retirement and be able to enjoy that for several years, if not a decade or 2 or 3. There was no thinking as to how their decisions affected their kids. There was no decisions, no thinking as to what they could or would have should have been doing, I suppose. And who knows? I hope I don't. Like if I'm here making videos, I don't know if YouTube will be around at that point, or it'll be some other sort of site, or I'll just, I don't know, maybe I'll be laid up in a hospital bed and unable to communicate with anyone, but I'm hoping that that I don't end up doing that, being a complete another hypocrite and going and doing that myself, not planning for the future and that sort of deal. But yeah, a lot of this is it could be filed under, well, their lifestyle finally caught up with them, the chain smoker who gets lung cancer, you feel bad for them, you don't want them to go through that pain, but, they smoked for 40 years, 50 years, and it was like a pack a day, and then it became 2 packs and 3 packs, and, so on, and they just didn't want to stop, and, their family tried to intervene and stop them. They're like, I'm going to do what the hell I want to do, get the hell out of my way, that sort of thing. And then they end up getting lung cancer, and it's like, I don't know, it's like a mixed bag, especially if you're their family and you tried to stop them from, essentially self-destructing. And, so much is the case here with my mom, where it's like the expression, like like their parents, they do love their kids, but it's sort of like, oh, do they love they love their kids enough to be willing and capable of admitting they got a problem, whether it's with alcohol or tobacco or something or other, and getting the help they need to get. Do they love their kids enough to, not live in a way that, they're going to be traumatizing their kids with an early death, insofar as one has any control over that. And there's a certain amount, there's like a line in the sand, I think, between, like how much control you have over those things and how much control you don't. And obviously a lot of folks want to say we don't have any control, nobody controls that, it's higher power, or it's fortune, or it's fate, or it's just, random chance or something of that nature. But I think we got more control over it. At least I would want to think we have more control over it than people want to let on. But it's just sort of like, did your parents, like, love you more than stuff or things? Did they cherish the possibility of creating positive, core memories with you, over, whatever narcissistic garbage they, could have chosen to engage in? Did they love you enough to, to quit the alcohol, to quit the tobacco, to get help with their anger issues, or to get therapy for their own childhood trauma, so they won't be passing that on, and continuing that intergenerational cycle of trauma, and I'm not coming at this from some sort of self-righteous angle. At least I'm not trying not to. But I don't think it really matters whether it's righteous or not. It's a matter of, like, what do you want your life to have been? What do you want your kids to think of you after you're gone? What kind of things do you want for them, want for yourself? Because, like, for instance, like, I wish my grandfather could have gotten a handle on his drinking. I know it would have been really, really difficult, not only coming from the family background that he came from, and all the hardships he had to go through the Depression and World War II, and even afterwards trying to get married and start a family, or getting married and starting a family and all that. But it probably would have meant more time with him, and I would have gotten to know him better. There have been things I could have learned from him, or I could have just spent time with him, created more memories than the handful of ones I have. My sister would have known who he was, like, instead of, oh, this is a picture of your grandpa, and let me tell you what I remember about him, or what I've learned about him, with his military record from World War II, and the research I've done on what guys who were doing what he was doing, what they were, what that was all about, and what that was like. And it would be, no, I actually have memories of him because he lived long enough, and it's the stuff that the stuff that really counts. It seems to me like it's so immaterial. Like, my grandpa could have bought me all this, that, and the other things. He could have bought things for my sister, and maybe those things might have meaning, but it would be because that's what my grandfather got from me, and that's what my grandmother got from me. But the things that really mattered to me and stuck with me have been, like, the memories I have of going fishing with him, the time he took me with him when he went hunting for pheasant, and the dinner we had, the fish I caught, and fish he caught, and the pheasant dinner we had, and like, stuff like that, and just, like, the impression that he left on me as to, like, who he was as a man, that glimmer of, hate to say it, but conventional masculinity, and the old school, like, the old breed, the kind of masculinity that you could expect out of a functioning health, at least a functional or semi-functional male member of society from back then. That example, that shining example of member of the greatest generation. And those were things that he didn't have to really spend money on, or so. He just had to sort of, like, be there and be present, and be who he was. And it's so many things with my mom that now I'm thinking, like, and it's really, like, kind of scary, and to think, like, sitting here and I'm talking about her, I'm having, it's like I'm having to sort of second guess whether I'm using the right tense, like, is this, should I be saying is, or should I be saying was? Should I be saying have? Should I be saying had? Because maybe saying is dying from, or has died from, or did die, like, but, the things with my mom that I cherish the most are, like, the positive memories. I mean, like, when I was a kid, she would read Tom Sawyer and Huckleberry Finn to me before I went to bed. She would read to me. And I beat myself up, every time I think about it. I lost that specific copy. I don't know if it's actually buried in some cardboard box somewhere, or if my memory of losing it is really what happened. And if I could hunt down, another copy that's just like the, at least how in my mind I remember it looking, I'd buy that. And that wouldn't be something that, has a monetary value. It'd be like, no, this is like the one that my mom would read to me, memories like that, or memories of, childhood, things that I can't remember with my mom. Times we went out to certain places together, and I was actually able to, like, wrestle her and my dad away from my sister, I'm sorry to say, but, then spend time with them. Or the day I graduated from college and my mom was there in the bleachers, and we got to take photos afterwards. And I hate myself for hate myself, or maybe like frustrated or angry with myself in the past for, like, having been so obsessed about that one girl and being so heartbroken about that when my mom was standing there next to me, and I should have just been more in the moment with her. But it's kind of like she wouldn't necessarily say every single time, "Oh, I'm so proud of you," but then I'd hear from my dad later on that my mom would always be asking him for the film, that he recorded me with a little camcorder, and I walked across the stage and took my degree, and she would just, like, out of the blue, just want to watch that, on repeat, because what that all meant to her, that I'd had to go and overcome so much, and being her son, going out there and doing that, it's sort of being this glimmer of hope for some sort of future, I guess, and just, us having that connection. And I'm sure things are going to come flooding back to me now, especially since, like, so much of the time with my mom, if I just wanted to talk to her about something, I could just go on. We had similar interests in different areas, and yeah, we had our disagreements and our fights and whatnot when it came to things like religion and politics, which makes me really frustrated, thinking back now, because, like, while in many ways I did agree with her on politics and we had, agreements on religion, that sort of thing, like, so much of the fighting, the argument was so damn pointless and stupid. It's just like, if you want to get into religion, it's kind of like, okay, if there is some God out there, that's all in his hands, or, that God's hands, and they'll decide where things fall when it comes to religion and spirituality. It's your job to sort of live your life by the best code you can, and if there is this God, develop that relationship with him, and that should be religion. That's not what a religion has become, if it ever was, not that. And when it comes to politics, like, so many of the things that people obsess about and fight over are just it's like so far above your pay grade. Yelling at your kid, yelling at your spouse or your sibling or your parent about, which way they're voting or what their opinion is on this, that, and the other. Like, it doesn't change anything. It doesn't make things better. It only damages your relationship with them. And, the politicians or political figures or causes, you want to claim you're championing, like, they don't give a damn about you. They don't care about your mom who's got cancer. They don't care about your dad who, had a stroke. They don't care about your sister is suffering from childhood trauma or viral meningitis. They don't care. They don't give a damn about you and your depression or your the possibility of you having a inguinal hernia or carpal tunnel or your knee issue. The pain that you get in the middle of the night. And sometimes your knees might seize up for whatever reason, or your sort of the uncertainty you feel about the future or your life. They don't care about any of that or whatever issues you may be going through. They don't give a damn. They're in a whole other world. It is the the rules for thee but not for me, the haves and the have nots, and by degrees. There's different ways of dividing that up. I'd say we're in a neo-feudalist society at this point or so, but however you slice it, so to speak, however you divide it up, however you categorize things, like, so much of that stuff, it just doesn't matter. Or if it matters, it's like it matters in the way that's so far above your pay grade as a single individual that, like, why let that get in between you and your family? Why let that get in between you and your friends, your neighbors? Like, you just end up being some stupid little foot soldier, and nothing you do really makes a difference, and you just end up wasting so much of your time. And then one day, you get diagnosed with a terminal illness, and suddenly, I don't know what, suddenly it all comes crashing down, and you're staring your own mortality right in the face. And I stared my mortality in the face when I was 22, and anytime these sorts of things that happen with my family, it's like I've kind of been on some level staring it in the face, because if it's some relative of yours or some friend or some co-worker or a neighbor or somebody you hear in the news, like, there's degrees of separation there. um some are closer, some are not as close, but when it's your parents, it's like that's just it's like death, like the Grim Reaper standing there, and he's just one step away from you, and you're seeing the decay, the decline right in front of you. And man, I don't know what to say to that, but that's where things are at right now. Maybe she's already gone, maybe she's still there. Like I said, it's probably gonna be a day or two, and then she'll be gone. And my dad wants to try and say, oh, there'll be some miracle, and it's like, no, like, for there to be a miracle, that's like saying I'm so special that no matter what I do, no matter what happens, that happened that led up to this, this moment, this time, that the Lord of the universe, or Fortune herself, is going to reach down and just sort things out for me at the last minute, that I'll never have to face consequences or face up to things I've done, or that I'm never gonna have to face my own mortality. Which when you think about mortality, it's like saying like that you're not special, you're just like all these other people who are rushing around in their cars, or on their bicycles, or they're walking here or there, or they're hobbling here or there, or what have you. And they're going about their lives, and it's only a matter of time before death finds us all. And at that point, like, you realize, yeah, like I said, like, you truly aren't special in that sort of sense. Not unless you've actually done something, like you had to sort of, it's almost like wanting to live on in memory, have that kind of immortality. It's like you have to actually have qualified for something, or live on genetically. You'd have to have qualified to have had, kids, grandkids, great grandkids, etc. Um, and even then, that's not enough to, um, completely put off death. That it'll come and get you regardless. And we waste so much time on so many things, and you get tied around to so many different subjects. I mean, whether we're talking about politics and religion, or we're talking about, substance abuse, or just sitting in front of the TV, or, on the internet 24/7, 365, not really building anything, not really doing anything, not having live time, but having dead time, spending dead time as opposed to spending lifetime. Potentially being sedated. You could bring NoFap into consideration on that, because what you're really doing with prawn is sedating yourself and wasting time, and just, hey, one day you're gonna die, and will you have been proud of all the hours you've wasted on that, as opposed to doing something that was like actually real and substantial, and that kind of left a mark on the universe that said, this person was here, and they did these things, and they were, a cut above, a cut above the rest, or cut above, the norm, such that they've earned a place in all of our memory. Like, the example of my grandfather. In a lot of ways, he was just, you could say he was quote unquote just an average guy who didn't really do anything, didn't go to college, didn't become an engineer or a doctor, didn't own his own palatial estate or a mansion, or, didn't attain extremely high office. He was in politics, but, like extremely high office. He wasn't the president of the United States, or the governor of the state, or, something like that. But his 2 years that he served in the United States Naval Reserve during World War II, as a machine gunner, I believe on board a PBY Catalina, consolidated PBY Catalina gunship, hunting Nazi submarines out in the Atlantic. I mean, at least in those 2 years, he did something that's like, the National Archives has a record of it. They have his photo there. They have, all the papers and documentation. They have, the list of his awards, and, he did something at least in those 2 years, and it's kind of like he's doing those things like that earned him a place in the memory of mankind, the memory of, his family, and, hopefully his descendants, and, etc., etc. And that's something that we all have to strive for. We have to face our own frailties. We have to face our own addictions. We have to face our own flaws, our compulsions. Because, before you know it, your time is up. And the story of your life has already been written, and it's over, and you can't go back and rewrite it. And, it's kind of like, you could try and get into movies and all that, but why not, live the kind of life that is, a movie in and of itself, in the uplifting sense, not in the sense of somebody who's so addicted to some sort of controlled substance that they cut their life short, and they damage their relationships with their family, their friends, anybody who ever cared about them. So I guess that's sort of the takeaway here. I mean, best I can, put out there into the universe or whatever. And I'll try and process, the grief that I am honestly experiencing. Because, this is not how I wanted things to go. As much as I know that I won't have to be dealing with, my mom's drunkenness anymore, and the fights that came out of that, and the, midnight ambulance rides, or 911 calls leading to those ambulance rides, and, the stress and the strain and the disruption, the chaos, the fear, and even the hope, and there'll be relief from that. It's like, this is not what I wanted. I wanted my mom to turn her life around. I wanted her to go, guys, I need to talk to you. Hey, I have a problem with alcohol. I'm an alcoholic, and I need your help. I need the help of Alcoholics Anonymous. I need a therapist. Can we get can we get a plan together? And we jump into action, get a plan together, and we work our way through this. And I want her to have that, and then maybe so many years go by and they come back and tell her, if you kept on drinking, in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, you would have had cancer and you would have died from this, or even if she was still gonna get it and still die, at this point, same age, same date, time, place, all that at the very least, the 20 years, 23 years, 25, 30, 40 years, whatever, would be, as the expression goes, time well spent. And, I've talked about the scumbag cousin of that branch of the family, how they've just gone off and lived their lives and done whatever the hell they want to do with, our money, our time. They, traumatized my sister and I. They did horrible things to her and to, and indescribably so, to her and also my youngest cousin. And, you compare that to what's going on here and what's been happening here for the last, 22, 23 years. And, this is not what I wanted. I'm going to try and hold on to the good memories of my mom, but also hold on to the lessons I've had to learn from these experiences and try to make the most of it. And, if I ever get married and have kids, I'll have to be honest with them about these things so that they understand, why I'll be the way I'll be, and, that they don't end up going along that path, because, it's almost like the expression, there are fates worse than death. Folks who died in their 20s and their 30s, but with the time that they had, they did something that, you still know their names, decades or even centuries after they went on, after, they had kids and grandkids and great grandkids, and their descendants are walking the earth nowadays. And, there's something positive that came out of that because they did something with their lives. They did something, at least, even if it was something that used to be considered seemingly basic, but apparently, like a lot of folks, in reality, having to come to terms with the way the world really is, that, a lot of folks can't even do, which is, to actually raise their own kids and raise them up to be healthy, functioning adults, But, anyways, coming up on 45 minutes, it's 43 minutes right now, so I don't know what else more I have to say unless I get some, unfortunate update. So anyways, I'll see you folks around, as I process this grief and I sort of go through the complexities of it, because, not to get Dr. Phil on you, but, there's two sides to every story, and there's a level of complexity to, the dynamics of my family and, my relationship with my mother and all that, is showing up in this time, because, grieving over a parent like her is complicated, and I'll probably have to save that for another video. Anyways, thanks for watching, and I'll hopefully get to see you folks around, soon. Bye-bye.